diplomatic solution to the ongoing conflict there. Let's get some more on this now and cross live to Ammar Waqqaf, a member of the London-based Syria Social Club think tank, joining us here live on RT. Thank you for coming on the programme. It's good to see you today. In his latest interview, President Assad said Syria will not accept any outside solution to its crisis. So is there any point in having this international meeting about Syria in Geneva?
Well, yes, there is, because at the end of the day, although it is an internal Syrian problem, actually what is making it far more complicated is the international, complications. Every single nation thought of this as an opportunity to stick their nose into this and try to get the best outcome that would suit their interest. And I'm talking here about regional players, international players, and so on. So it is important for them to sit down and talk with each other, because solving the problems in between them would reflect positively, I would say, onto the situation in Syria. We've seen regional players like the Saudis, the Qataris pledging really arms and funds to the rebels since the armed peace plan was supported by the UN Security Council, and this has complicated the matter a lot. And it is now time that those people sit down with each other and decide whether they're going to continue with this and at what cost, and who's paying it.
But, moments ago you said that this meeting in Geneva is an important meeting, but then you went on to say that these international players and regional players are sticking their noses perhaps where they don't belong. So what are their aims then with the ongoing crisis in Syria, with the current president saying he doesn't want their help?
Well, of course he doesn't, because I think the reason why the Syrian crisis has taken so much long and so at such a high cost is because the regional players so fit, to interfere in Syria. They made, in my opinion, a wrong bet on the rapid fall of the current Syrian government, or the current government in Syria, and they thought that they might benefit from installing a new government in Syria that would suit more their interests. We know the Saudi rivalry with Iran. We know that the Turks have their own internal issues, and they would want some sort of an Islamic government in Damascus to suit their Islamic tendencies, and not in order to fight their internal secular opponents in Turkey, and all sorts of things. The Western powers would want to take complete control over the Middle East region on the resources. They're thinking that Russia and China and India and so on, they have all the resources in the world. They have human resources, production capacity, finances. They control a lot of natural resources and so on and so forth. And they think that they would want to control this region in order to compete, to be able to compete with those emerging powers. So everybody has an interest. However, this is reflecting badly on the situation in Syria. So arming the rebels, now we have Arab fighters and Muslim fighters. This is a reenactment of the Afghan tragedy between the 1979 and the 1988.
As you say, certainly there are regional players here, there are international players, all having this meeting in Geneva to benefit their own personal interests of what they stand to gain. What is the next step? What happens in Syria? As we know, these are international members meeting in Geneva. Iran, as we all know, has been excluded. There are many saying that Iran should have been involved in this. The meeting is ongoing right now. We're standing by to listen to some of the heads of state to come out of the meeting and tell us what's the next step for Syria. But as far as you're concerned, what are your expectations to come out of this meeting that hasn't quite wrapped up yet?
Well, I do view the international aspect of the Syrian crisis to be very much similar to what happened in 1956 in the Suez crisis, where the old imperial regime, the French and the British, thought that they can actually dictate world affairs by invading directly Egypt without consulting with anyone. And there had been a shift at the time. The new emerging powers, the Soviet Union at the time and America, saying, no, you're now second best and you need to consult with us. And now there is a very similar shift that is happening from the West to the East, in my opinion. And I would argue that the debacle in Libya, where Russia and China let the West do whatever they want, and instead of hundreds of dead, now we have tens of thousands of people died, and we don't know if we have a Libya anymore, the Russians and the Chinese are saying, enough is enough. You cannot dictate world politics like this and go into war through proxies. Now we're hearing that the Saudis are sending some forces, obviously the jihadis all over the place, and the Turks are actually sending some forces to the Syrian border, and you cannot cannot control that, piece of the world or peace order of the world at your behest without, being accountable to it. And I think what will emerge of this Geneva meeting is a new sort of world order where, the Western powers would admit that they cannot take things like what they have been doing so far. And we've heard so far some statements like from the British Foreign Minister William Hague. He says, it's very hard to convince the Russians, for example, and we don't know if this is going to be possible or not. And they're starting to admit that they can influence things less now than they had been able to do so a year ago, especially when Libya happened.
Well, we're certainly very eager to see the results of this meeting ongoing in Geneva. We're on standby to hear the statements from the world leaders there. Ammar Waqqaf, a member of the London-based Syrian Social Club think tank. I'm sorry that's all the time we have for today, but thank you for coming on the programme.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.